Yes, hello folks. Welcome along once again to the Irish Rally Podcast. Tonight in association with Tree Rock, who create, manufacture and deliver signage and brand activation solutions to businesses and brands across the country. Visit treerock.ie for more and follow them on social media. A clatter of stuff to go through and a stellar lineup here on tonight's programme. Coming up a little bit later, we'll be chatting to Rob Duggan and Jorah Conway. We'll also chat to Nicole Drought as well. But first of all, I'd like to welcome on Mr. Sean Moriarty of Kerry Motorsport News. How are we doing, Shawnee?
Good, Kevin. Yeah, recovering after a hectic weekend in the Kingdom, but it was good fun, good crack, great weekend's rally.
You're getting used to this crack now, aren't you?
Well, small bit used to it, all right. It might be around in a few days, all right. But it's still a great sport. It's still great to be involved.
Absolutely. And delighted to welcome on Mr. Paul Nagle. Paul, how are we doing?
I'm very good. Great to be on, and thanks for having me.
At long last, we've got a hold of you.
Yeah, I kind of stay away from these things as much as I can, especially when we're so busy during the year, and you just have to be clever on social media sometimes what you say. But this is a special occasion, so sorry for the last few times, but sure, we're here now.
It's all right, we'll forgive you. Now, to put it out there, in fairness, Paul did get in touch with us and offered his services in apology for the last few times when he wasn't available. So we thank you for that, Paul. As you mentioned, it was a very special weekend. There was just so much poignant moments, I suppose, for lots of people involved. We have lots of stories to touch on, you know. So for you, especially, Paul, obviously, you know, your dad, Morris, the brainchild of the event, I suppose, back in 1996. And then to go on and win it, I suppose, and have that trophy in front of you, pretty special.
Yeah, for sure it is. I was only a teenager when it happened in 1996, and there was a lot of preparations for a couple of years before that, and it was a big battle to get it over the line and get everything sorted with sponsors and stages, and to get another rally ran in Killarney Motor Club as well when they had the big international. But my dad always pushed for there was an opening for a historic rally, and really wanted it. And I was only in school back then, so I was delighted to get away with dossing days and doing bits and pieces and out marking the roads. And I was actually my first event as well. We were myself, one of my best friends, Paul Ahern. We went off delivering sandwiches to all the marshals for the whole weekend, and that was a whole stories as well. But there for other days, but we ran out of fuel and other stupid things like that because we were young and inexperienced. We were only 16 and 17. We were, yeah, and. That's where I got my very first break. It was a rally car, gave out pace nuts, and obviously I went on 2 years later then with Kieran O'Neill to win the modified section. So to come back this year, and obviously 2 years ago as well, but to get my hands on the cup now, it was always something that I had to get my hands on eventually at some stage and try and win it. And with the circumstances over the last couple of years, and when I'm away from the World Championship, we were able to make it happen. And it's just the way the whole thing fell this year to come back again and able to do it, because I think from 2008 to 2019 I had only done 2 rallies in Ireland, so between ERC and IRC and WRC it was very hard to come back and do any rallies at home. I was always to help out in the rally and help out the club, but yeah, it was very special for me to win the 25th. Obviously it's a 25th anniversary, very important, and I think I said a couple times over the weekend I also have the Tama Championship trophy here, and I have the 40 Lakes as well. So for any kid growing up through the world of motorsport and Irish motorsport, you'd always want to win your home rally. You'd always want to win something at home. And for me to have all 3 of them now, it took a long time to get them, but my career went different roads and went down the WRC route, obviously. But my roots were always at home, and it gave me that fire back in me back in 2019 to go back and do the Tama Championship and start to enjoy the sport again. And really happy now to have that cup there this weekend.
Yeah, and in fairness, Sean, you kind of broke that story on Kerry Motorsport News over the weekend. The fact that Paul had won every Kerry rally as such, like, I mean, that's a hell of an achievement. And as he's mentioned there, he's very much rooted, you know, to the area. But overall, just to change things slightly, I mean, the crowds, lads, it was just mega. Like, people were all over the place. The place was thronged. Which was mighty, obviously. But what was it like going around in the double O, Sean, trying to keep an eye on things and make sure everyone was safe, because there was such big crowds, and that's obviously a big, you know, an important facet of the event and every event.
Yeah, the crowds were incredible. I mean, credit to Killarney District Motor Club for the work they put in and the they ran an exceptionally safe and well-organised event. Yeah, fair enough, the first stage was a little bit late getting off the ground, but it was almost like a perfect storm. We were starved at rallying. We haven't seen so much rallying down here or anywhere in the country for the last 2 years. And then you've got our two biggest world stars appearing in an iconic BMW M3, which is a rally really rooted in the history of the rally at the lakes. You go back to the Bertie Fisher days of the 1990s, Austin McHale, the Russian twins. So it was just the perfect star attraction to get the people out. But the second time up the gap, I think it was very like it's equivalent to the World Championship. There was people peeping out of every hedge and bush up along the road there. Fantastic scenery. Like we had a touch of frost down here late last week, Wednesday and Thursday night, and the McGillicuddy Reeks were still covered in a white snow to remind you of Gap in Monte Carlo, and just incredible scenes really to see the amount of people out there. And with that kind of a backdrop, there's no better backdrop. The roads down here are made for rallying, and rallying is made for Kerry, and everybody's happy. But as I said at the beginning, the real credit goes to the team at Killarney District Motor Club for an incredible amount of hard work over a short period of time. I think they only got the green light in mid-September to pull off what is the equivalent of an international rally in that space of time. They deserve the real clap in the back. Fantastic. You also touched there on Paul's kind of the historic fact that he's won every single rally possible in County Kerry now. That's unlikely to be ever beaten now with the new rules coming in by Motorsport Ireland. Some of these rallies are only going to be run every second year. The Killarney Historic Rally is discontinued for various other reasons. Paul won the Circle Kerry, which is technically my home event, in 2004 alongside Joni O'Sullivan. But it was that very man that gave Paul his first break in the WRC 8 or 9 months after. And the Circle Kerry was April 2004, and Paul's first WRC event was at Rally Catalunya the same year. So there's always nice connections that have kind of followed through from his first Circle Kerry went to his debut in the World Championship, or with the same driver in the same car.
Yeah, and Paul, when did you know that this event was going to be a possibility for yourself and Craig? Like, did you have much time to plan?
No, we were testing for Monte. Oh, well, a couple of weeks ago, I think. Originally we were planning to do the RAC, and that was put on hold. 5 days in the Mark II Escort over in Wales, and we ended up being testing last week in France on the Wednesday. So that was never going to happen. We knew that 2 weeks earlier, and Craig just spoke to Mike Mahoney briefly to say, look, if you need anything for the rally, videos or anything, we won't be available. And that happened a week and a half before the rally, I suppose. 2 weeks before the rally. And Mike from Rentakill came on board and says, is there a car available? Can we make something happen? And between Mike Mahoney and Paul Ahern from Ahern's and Stephen Mallarode Motors, they all jumped on board quickly, and it happened more or less while we were on the plane going over to France to go testing, and we got back on Thursday evening, and we got into the car there late Thursday evening for a couple of spins and headed for Kenmare Saturday morning. It was a fantastic car. It was absolutely superb by Mats, who brought all the way over from Holland. We've seen enough videos now in the last couple of days that the sound of it was phenomenal everywhere, and it was a joy to be inside in the car for the whole day, and the 3 stages were fantastic. The weather, you couldn't pick better weather for it. It's been damp in the morning, but it was great to be inside in it. It's as I remember a young lad watching the Russians and Bertie Fisher and Austin McHale and the 3 M3s in Killarney back in 1990s, and the Russians were a big sensation that weekend, yet Fisher went on to win the rally and McHale lost the championship in Cots Head by breaking a drive shaft. So yeah, it was always a fabulous car growing up as well, and I was lucky enough to get a spin a number of years back as well with Dennis Cronin and Galway in the M3. I'm starting to show my age a bit now, but the minute Craig got the opportunity to get into M3, there was no going back, and it's possibly our last trip out now. You won't see us probably back in Irish soil unless it's on a WRC car. I think we'll be tied up now fairly well for the next 2 years, so to get that last little chance and let between Ford and Hounders let them do a couple of events like this, it would just with pressure-free rallying and enjoy it, because it'll be a totally different story next year.
Absolutely. And even though we have seen a few videos, right, we've a minute and a half a clip there that Eamon Finn gave us. It is up on his Facebook page and the YouTube page as well, that you can obviously subscribe to and have a look at. But people are obviously going to be listening to this. They choose to listen instead of watching. They'll be doing it on Spotify. and an apple and place like that afterwards. So I just think for the purpose of that, for me, what resonates the most about the car, as well as it being so beautiful looking, is the actual sound of it. So we might give this a quick jingle, lads. Wow was all I can describe it as. What was more impromptu now, the actual participation in the event, Paul, or the donuts there at the last junction?
That was probably a local what would I call it, a local
arrangement.
Arrangement with a couple of friends running up the front, a couple of my friends and all. But we were but Malls Gap and Ballacbeema, no, we weren't hanging about the second pass. We had a good go. We had a right good go on Ballacbeema. Obviously, Craig's dad went off, and we just had to make sure his car didn't looking so badly damaged. And we came up and just did a few donuts. But just one of those things you have to do sometimes.
Yeah, well, look, as I said, the sound, I just love the sound of the M3. I think it's incredible, like, you know what I mean? And a lot of the time, in fairness, when at the start of Kevin Glendenning's podcast on Crunching Gears, you hear those sounds. You hear the Metro, you hear the BMW, you hear the Subaru and all. And you don't even have to, you can just close your eyes and you can see them. That's the kind of thing that it brings and the uniqueness of it, I suppose. But yeah, Sean, you got a bit of a spin in this machine as well, didn't you?
I did. I was very lucky. I think that deal happened in the pub on Thursday night, but so sometimes what happened in the pub should stay in the pub, but he didn't get away with it this time. Paul mentioned to me on Thursday night, he said, if you're doing nothing about 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, be at this location and bring your helmet. And I said, what's going on? He said, you heard me. So I arrived there at the appointed time. And Craig and Mats were very busy early in the morning trying to get the final setting on this car. And more or less when he was finished, myself and Tony O'Sullivan and a few more local club members here were very lucky. And I stress that, very lucky and very privileged to get the opportunity to go for a spin on the very famous Malachanich stage in County Cork, often used in the Cork 20 International Rally, and the last time the Cork 20 ran in the Ballavoon area, they used that stage. So incredible car, incredible driver, incredible experience. Probably one of my highlights of a very, very exciting weekend. But as I say, privileged and honoured. There's just, right place, right time, and grateful for my friendship with Paul and Craig that opportunity came about, to be honest about it. Many people would like to have that opportunity, but very lucky, very, very lucky. Yeah, beautiful car. On a slightly different note, that video there kind of took me straight back to the 1990s. I'm showing my age now as well, and I can remember the Russians and Mikhail and Bertie Fischer et all in the 1990s in these BMWs, and you could superimpose those cars back into that video clip over Carroll Lake and Ballacbeema there, and the only thing different in the video is there's lads hanging out of hedges with mobile phones taking videos. everything else is the same. Like, it's just hasn't. It's incredible. Straight back to those days. I was on Cod's Head that day, and I wasn't too far away from where McHale broke the rear axle. You could see him in the distance stopping, and that handed the Irish tarmac title at the time to Bertie Fisher. And then that became Rory Kennedy's first ever international rally win. And 31 years later, this weekend, he was back in Killarney. Not his first time back in Killarney now, but his first time ever doing the historic rally. Also on the BMW M3. And I mean, I'm talking there about the special occasion I had on Friday morning, but nothing could compare to what Paul and Rory Kennedy have experienced. Paul has created memories, and Rory was reliving memories, if you like, and that's just fantastic for the two of them, really. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Paul, like, if we can just bring it back to, because I have a picture of this moment in my head, and I'd like to know what kind of was going through your head at the time. But when you're sitting there up at the bar, right, and the trophy's in front of you, that's named after your dad, it has to be special. Like, you're sitting there with such pride. I can only imagine.
Of course I am, yeah, for sure. Like, it's he did the historic rally in 2018 as road closed, like he did for many years, and 5 or 6 days later he was dead. So myself and Craig were in the metro that day. So for sure, look, the amount of work my dad's close friends did to get that cup, and they raised huge amounts of money, and they paid for the cup, and there was loads and loads of money left over, and went to a special charity as well. And it was always there. It's like, I'd have to win it. That was then there was no ifs or buts about it at some stage. And I put in Craig under pressure a lot of times, and I put him in huge pressure 2 years ago in the Rally of the Lakes and the 40, and I wanted that one as much as I wanted this one. But I felt more relaxed this weekend. I just felt that we had the right car. I had the right man beside me, and I owe him a huge amount of credit too. As I said in the Lakes 2 years ago, I put more pressure on him than I would do in Finland and Ypres this year when we were battling for a contract, and what the whole of town, Killarney, put him pressure on him. But he soaked it up well this weekend. But for sure, like, emotionally and connected to me and my family and all, to have the cup, and as I said, to have the two of them now on the Tarmac Championship trophy, I feel like I have everything I ever wanted in Irish motorsport completed. And Sean did touch on the Circuit of Kerry, and I have the Banna Beach as well, and the Forestry back in 2005, and I actually am county champion as well of one of Shawnee's championships 2 years ago. So it means an awful lot to me, really. It's hard to put words into it. It's hard to tell you. I'm ecstatic. It would be great if my dad was still around, but I have his cup, so that's important too. So I don't be jumping around the place. I have it. It's part of me for the next 12 months, but I'll never bring it back. So there's a part of me, there's part of me there as well that I'm not, it's just jumping with joy, if that makes sense. Like, yeah. So, but anyway, that's where it is.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Well, I'll tell you one thing, he'd be damn proud of you, boy, and a contract now for next year as well. It's great stuff, in fairness, Paul. And before I kind of delve into that, I just want to know, going up the gap, whatever, you've been up and down an M3, a 6R4, WRC cars, rear-wheel drives. How did it compare the other day, and what is that feeling like, just blasting up through that famous stage?
Would you believe I'd be always a bit edgy and nervy starting Malls Gap? I suppose my home rally is, and as well, I could go to other rallies in the world now, and I wouldn't even bother me. Malls Gap is that local attraction, one of the most famous stages in the country, and it was a big buzz going up there. I think the Metro in 18 was something. It wasn't about out and out speed. It was out pure noise in the Metro. But the second pass in the M3 now, when it dried up a lot, we really enjoyed it going up, especially up around the ladies' view, up around all around the beef, as we call it, the locals. It was really, really good. And obviously coming to the top of the gap has widened up again a lot now. And then turning right at the top, you probably don't get the same satisfaction of drifting going left. But look, every car is different. You go up there. I was looking up to go in the R5 as well a couple of years ago. So, but any day you get up Malls Gap on a closed road is a special day.
Mm-hmm. And just then, in relation to next year, before I do let you go, I know a lot of it is tight-lipped or whatever, but in fairness now, right, I think it was probably the worst kept secret in motorsport. Like, we all knew it was going to happen, right? Some probably knew a bit quicker than others, isn't that right, Sean? In fairness now, Sean,
I wouldn't have any context up that level now, to be honest. But
in fairness, he didn't leak it. But on a serious note, absolutely delighted that that's after happening. And you must be buzzing. And obviously you mentioned you've been doing some testing already and all. You're only talking a few weeks, and we're up and going again. So it's hectic, and it's a drive that you both deserve. And obviously we're delighted for you here on the Irish Rally podcast. But talk to us about that.
Yeah, it was the worst kept secret, right? But a lot of people are surprised that all the deals were done a long time before we got the Estonia podium and the Ypres podiums. So it was kept well and quiet enough till the Estonia came around, when people knew we weren't staying with Hyundai, I think. Then it started to leak, but the deals were done well before that. Yeah, it was a great year with Hyundai, I have to say. I think we had a solid year in every rally. We did disappoint in Croatia for certain reasons, and just didn't have a good rally. And you can have those ones, but I think when all the contracts were nearly in place, and we went to Estonia, Finland, and where else was it? Estonia, Ypres, and Finland. There were 3 huge rallies, and to lead Estonia more or less on very close to the lead on Friday night, taking on Robin Perowitz on his back door, and racing Thierry Neuville on his back door in Ypres, and then going and leading Finland was a huge credit to Craig, and he deserved to be back in the World Championship. He deserved his drive at the top table now, and those results were helped that we had a contract finalised and signed and sealed more or less before we got into these big rallies. But yeah, going into next year, it's going to be a huge commitment. We haven't done a full season. We haven't done a full season since 2016 or 15 actually. So it's going to be huge work. As I said, I was away last week in Monte Carlo testing. We have a test in Sweden before Christmas, and then there's people counting on the second week in January. It all starts from Monte Carlo and go testing. We have all new cars. Loads of people ask me, what does it feel like? We all say it all feels great, but you don't have a reference. I had this situation back in 2017. Our Citroen looked fantastic, and we don't have to talk anymore about that. And we go to Monte with a massive support from Ford. There's massive resources being put into it. Malcolm has put a lot of faith into Craig. The expectations will be high, and Toyota won't build a bad car. Hyundai won't build a bad car. They'll all have their own little extras on their own side of things from the engineering, and we have to go Monte Carlo, get a good result, and push on as much as we can for the whole year. And I'd be lying to say we will be expected to win rallies, and I suppose to have an all-Irish crew in the top 7 podium on the World Championship rally next year is something that isn't a dream. It has to be. It's realistic, really. If you want to look at the bigger picture, we have to win rallies next year, and it's something that probably means an awful lot to me and Craig. I have my wins, obviously, and Craig has fought so hard to get back to the top of the World Championship, and he's got his podiums now, and he's getting quicker and quicker, and he's maturing, and he improves every rally he goes out. So I'm expecting good results next year. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be a lot of work. Reliability, obviously, with all the new cars, we don't know what to expect. This hybrid era, no one knows what this. The engineers seem to know what's going on. I stay out of it. I wouldn't be that clever in school, so I keep out all these technical side of things and all that carry on. So I just call the pace nuts and get A to B. But it'll be demanding on both myself and Craig and the team, and we'll have huge support from Ireland, traveling around the world. I couldn't believe it, that the amount of people were in Finland and Ypres, and hopefully the whole world will be in a better place next year, and we'll have a lot more people in service parks and stages like that, and on the stages as well. So I don't know, we're just looking forward to Monte Carlo, looking forward to getting back at it again, and for me to get another crack at it again, another crack at the full season. Something maybe back in 2018 I didn't think would ever again happen.
So last point, and it's kind of twofold, right? So the first part of it is it's an observation, obviously. I think the fact that you were auditioning almost, or it seemed like you're auditioning every event this year, has to help with the pressure next year of, the expectations around winning, first of all. And I'll double it up by asking another additional pressure, balancing family life, because you're away a lot of time. That's obviously tough, and something that you've obviously experienced before, but it has to take its toll a little bit. So how do you go about trying to get the balance right with that?
Yeah, well, first of all, on the pressure, I suppose you're right. An audition every. Well, we'll go back 12 months to Estonia, when in the middle of foot and mouth. You hear me? COVID. We had the second place Titanic that year, and that was what gave us a contract for this year. Whatever it is, Craig seems to soak up all the pressure, and he dealt with it very well this year. As I said, we had our 3 podiums, and we will have different types of pressure next year. This year, we're on the cusp of getting in. Now we're part of it. We're the number 1 drivers of Ford. and we'll be expected. So that's a different type of pressure. As for managing family life, yeah, it's very difficult. You have to have a very understanding woman at home, and I'm very lucky that Kathy and my two boys, she looks after them as much as she can, and it's a team effort at home, and you're away so much, you give up, you sacrifice everything, and they sacrifice everything for me, and I've sacrificed. A lot of people ask me, "Oh, I have a great life and travel the world, and I have the fancy race suits and the fancy helmets, and I go here and there." And I don't get me wrong, I love it. And you're on 100 flights a year, or 100 plus flights a year, trips around the world, and they're not business class flights. Even people think we have the best life in the world, and you're living out of dodgy hotels, and when you're up in the mountains testing and all this, and that's all part of it. And it's all something that you just get on with life. But the commitment is huge. Like, there's no such thing as birthday parties, weddings, funerals, 40s, 50s. I missed the birth of my first child because I was in Germany. So you have to give up absolutely everything. And my family and wife and my friends must fit in around me. And they're a huge part of my success, and my huge part of me going forward. And I'd be speaking the same for Craig as well. His mom and dad travel the world around, but I have 2 young kids now at home as well, so it's hard going away from them all the time. But look, this is what it is. I've got it this far. I have to keep going for another bit and keep flying the flag for Ireland as much as I can.
That's it, because obviously the time frame isn't endless either, so you have to kind of make it count while the opportunities are there. So listen, come here, we'll leave it at that, Paul. A pleasure to have you on the Irish Rally podcast. Thanks for jumping on, and the very best of luck to yourself and Craig for next year. All right.
And I'll come on again, I promise. When I know what I'm doing next year, I'll come on again.
We haven't scared you.
No, you haven't. No, you're fine.
Good man. Thanks a million, Paul. We'll chat to you again soon. So now it's time to bring in Rob Duggan. How are you getting on, Rob?
Not bad. How are you?
Fine it now. And Mr. Jorah Conway. How are we doing, Jorah?
Good. How are you?
Sir, we're not going too bad. Congratulations. Obviously a very special victory for you guys as well. On Saturday in the modifieds. And yeah, whatever it was with the car that you were giving out about the last time, Rob, you were saying she was sliding all over the place, I think, below in the banner rally, and obviously there was problems, you think, up to even the night before. You got them sorted fairly convincingly anyway, but how bad were they? What were they? And when did you actually get them sorted?
Oh, jeez, yeah. From the minute we left Benna, we were trying to sort out the problems that we were having, just handling issues, teething issues with the car, couldn't stop the car with the brakes and stuff. We just went about trying to figure out the problems straight away. We thought we had everything fixed for the Saturday before the rally. Went for a drive. The car was still all over the place. Brought it back up to Donald Healy Motorsport, who did a massive job the last 2 weeks getting it prepared for Killarney. Got to most of the problems. Went for a spin Thursday morning, blew another hole in the exhaust. Had to go midday Thursday, make a phone call, get a full new exhaust system made for the car, left his shed in Cork at, I think it was 1 or 2 o'clock Thursday night, drove down to where we test local, got going Friday for a spin, and within 2 or 3 runs, we sourced that the front right shock in the car, as it was getting hot, it was seizing up. So quick phone call to my brother, who thankfully pulled out of the rally a week or 2 before it. Could we borrow his 2 front shocks off the car? Straight back to the shed, 2 front shocks off his, off mine, swapped them around, back out to another shed. Donald Healy came down, tracked it up, and it went in for park for me in the start ramp. So it was about 45 minutes before the start ramp that we actually finished the car and thought, okay, it's somewhere ready to face Moll's Gap. And yeah, we'd no test, we'd no nothing. We just put settings into it and hope for the best. So I suppose it didn't work out too bad after the week we had leading up to it.
It didn't, in fairness. And obviously, on the first stage, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you guys were 10 seconds quicker than your nearest, opposition at that particular point, maybe even more. I think it was in around 10 anyway. But that's obviously on a stage. That's on a stage where you've just got the car right, like. So you weren't sparing it, even though you knew there was maybe an issue or two. Like, you were taking, we taking a bit of a risk with that, do you think, like?
Look, I suppose anytime you jump into a rally car and try and go up Moll's Gap hard, you're taking a bit of a risk. But no, we said it before the rally even started that, look, we're just going to go and try and enjoy ourselves, and if something comes out of it, it does, and we try and work on the car during the week or during the weekend and see how we can progress it. But we genuinely didn't know facing into Mal's Gap if we'd be a minute quicker or a minute slower than everyone. We just kind of went with the whole attitude of we'll just try our best, and if it's working, it went around the first two corners and it didn't break away and it didn't slide across the road. So from there on, we kind of knew, okay, it's not a million miles away. Let's get the head down. And luckily enough, we had a good tyre choice for the morning. We kind of took a risk and went slightly harder than some, and I suppose at the end of it, it just paid off. Yes, we always come out of the blocks and try and be quick on stage one. So it's kind of where I try and get a chunk in away in the morning and see what we can do from there. And yeah, it paid off with a 10-second lead out of the first stage. It was a nice start.
Yeah, well, Liam O'Callaghan famously spoke about the secret of the gap, but Jorah, you seem to have it very much so anyway Saturday morning.
Yeah, it was considering all the problems during the week and everything, it couldn't really be much better start to the day. But that stage, like, the time was very, very good in it, but I think it was very calm, clean, good lines, everything. I don't think it actually felt as quick as it was, but yeah, it was a good start to the day.
Absolutely. And in fairness, we have a couple of clips of you guys now, right? And one of them, the first one I'm going to show is from 9-year-old Shane Quinn. So let's have a little look at this. Yeah, so that's the first one. This is going through the gap. In fairness, like that in particular, you're very much trying there going through the gap. Like, yeah, it must be some sight coming up that road and seeing that crowd then, and yeah, then the tail flicks out for good measure.
Yeah, we were only laughing about it after the stage. We just kind of, it was a bit unintentional. We just went down a gear, down to third, and turned it in the back took off. And I said, sure, where else is better than to throw it outside at the top of Mal's Gap? So I just pegged the shoe to the headlight and hung on. And luckily enough, we got out the other side and didn't lose much time. So yeah, it was just a bit of a spur of the moment thing.
Yeah, well, it looks spectacular in fairness. And in fairness, like the first clip I showed there, right, that was obviously, you know, I'll just show a comparison. We have a clip of Kevin Ease as well, again from 9-year-old Shane. Like, he's trying desperately hard there, so in fairness, and it nearly all goes wrong. Like, that's Kevin's style, I suppose. But just the contrast in that particular clip, you know, it is interesting. Like,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can see Kevin was trying hard, and I suppose it didn't show there that we were trying hard, but I can assure you we weren't. There was definitely spec coming off the forward, and we got to the end of it. But yeah, the boys tried very hard, and I suppose they all say the local knowledge and whatever plays a big part, which I suppose it does. And I do know the stage very well and whatever, but at the end of the day, I suppose we still have to grab the steering wheel and drive it. And the boys have plenty of ink cars and everything to follow up and see how quick they can go up there and where they can improve. So I suppose it's just, yeah, it's a stage I like, and it's when you're facing into it, you just, I know I want to do a good time, and when it's first out of the blocks in the morning, it always suits. And yeah, Kevin wasn't too far away at all, and a lot of other lads. It's only waiting to happen that they'll take a big chunk of time out of us on the gap, and yeah, we'll try and keep it going and keep nipping seconds out of them until that happens in a way.
Sean, I'd say you were a bit tighter going through the gap, were you?
Sorry, Kevin, I missed that.
I'd say you were a bit tighter now going through the gap, were you?
Well, you know, front wheel drive, of course, like rear wheel drive, but I give the boys credit, Rob and Jared. That's a fantastic performance and fantastic driving. I know Rob a long time. I remember maybe going back about 10 years ago, and I was doing a report for Radio Kerry at the end of Mal's Gap. I was ran the opposite way, this way, where he turned left at the top rather than right. And I asked him his time for the stage, and he gave it to me. I said, no, give me the time. And it was actually in the Honda Civic at the time, and it was good enough for an international rally top 10 time, and that just showed the talent back then in the Honda Civic. I think what impressed me most, and I mean, and this is even off the stages, that impressed me most about Rob and Jared the weekend was, I was one of the first people to shake their hand at the finish ramp in the Nagle. The first thing they said to me that they were dedicating the win to Johnny Hickey. Now, Johnny Hickey was a great friend of ours, and I include Paul Nagle, who just left the podcast in this, and we lost him in unfortunate circumstances earlier on this year. But they were absolutely the first words out of Rob's mouth, and it meant a lot. It meant a lot to Rob. He was close friends with Johnny. It meant a lot to Jorah, who was close friends, and me hearing it meant a lot as well, because he's left. It's a big loss in Killarney District Motor, big loss to Irish rallying, and good friend to all of ours. And I take my hat off to them. The very first words that they said at the Gleneagle on Saturday evening was that they're dedicating this win to Johnny, and absolute respect, boys. Fair play for that. That's I mean that, like, yeah.
Mm. Very much on your mind, I would take it during the day. That's a motivating factor, I suppose, lads.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is our first Killarney Historics without Johnny around the place, ringing us, making sure this is right and that's right, and ringing us where we wanted to be seated. We nearly always had to pick with Johnny. He used to do a great job in the seating, and yeah, it's just in small things that you'd coming up to the week of the rally, you'd say you wouldn't miss him 2 weeks before, but the week of it, he's just the phone calls would be endless and making sure everything is right, and he'd be up to his eyeballs trying to help out with the rally as well, and he'd be the first lad to text or ring or anything after you'd finished the last stage if we were fortunate enough to win. And I suppose it's the small things like that you miss.
Mm-hmm. And obviously Mike Falvey as well, lads. Another person we'd like to pay a tribute to or whatever. And the number one was left vacant on the door, obviously for those reasons as well. So, like, as we've kind of touched on, Sean, like, it's a very special event, and Rob obviously and Jorah and Paul as well. The lads that won obviously had very special attachments with people.
Absolutely, it's that kind of a rally. It's kind of it is very competitive, and it's taken very serious by people. But I don't think it's as kind of cutthroat as the international rally in May, or maybe trying to win Donegal or something like that. There's an element of crack about it, an element of fun and camaraderie, and it starts on Friday evening with the rally cars and the Christmas lights in Killarney Town Centre. That's spectacular in its own right, and I think the move to a Saturday event a number of years ago has helped as well. And as I said earlier, the climbing the mountain on Saturday morning, you see the snow-capped McGillicuddy Reeks to your right hand side. It reminds you of Monte Carlo Rally, and then the kind of prize giving and the Saturday night after party is probably better served on a Saturday night, because people can relax on Sunday rather than trying to rush back to work on a Monday. And all these little things just make this a kind of a very, very special rally. Yes, as I say, very competitive, and everybody that's in whichever category, the historic or the modified category, wants to win this rally. But there's more crack, I think. There's more fun and there's maybe not as much stress. I'll ask the guys that, would they think there's more stress in May or more stress in November? I would go with there's less stress in November. But maybe the boys know better. They're the guys racing up there, and they're going up there a hell of a lot quicker than I ever went up there in my heyday 20 years ago. So,
what do you reckon, lads?
Yeah.
It's definitely, I think, more of a fun end of year event. Definitely, everyone is in brilliant form. Christmas atmosphere, everything. It's just it's a great event to be involved in. I think it's getting bigger and bigger every year. And even the start of Miles Gap last Saturday morning, the crack and the banter and the winding and everything between everyone was gas-like. But the second you put the helmet on, then it changes.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. It's all great crack at the start ramp, and it's all great crack leading out, as Jorah said. The winding going on at the start of the gap was something frightening Saturday morning, and a lot of lads will be scratching their heads wondering, are these lads going to tear their heads off each other? But no, it was all good crack, but like that, when the helmet goes on, same the last time out in 2019, it was all good crack with Paul and Craig and everything up to the start. But when the flag dropped, we're all there to do one thing, and that's go as hard as we can. And as we all want to do, we want to have a bit of crack at the end of the year. And yeah, it's definitely a good fun event, but serious enough when you put on the helmet too.
I think what makes it interesting, lads, is, and I suppose even from, like, my father would always tell me he went to heaps of rallies, and in the 80s and the early 90s, and he loved nothing more than a Mark II and a rear-wheel drive car. And obviously, we went into BMWs and Subaru Legacies and stuff. And obviously, and then on Saturday, that's what you're bringing back to people. So I think a lot of people that might have stopped going to rallies because they thought it might have gone a bit too boring or whatever. You hear this thing thrown around, the cars are stuck to the road now, etc., etc. Like, I think that's what's so novel about the event in particular for me. And I think it's a factor in the big crowds that we saw the other day. And obviously the fact that things have been fairly slack in terms of events has obviously helped as well. But definitely the standout, I think, is the machinery that's there. And that's a big draw. I wonder, like, obviously there's a uniqueness to it, but could we see, this kind of evolving another little bit? Because people spoke about, having the Group A class back and the legacies and all. We spoke about it with Gary Bradley, I think, on a podcast previously. Is that something you can see happening? Like, I know we're heading into the historics territory, obviously, but a Group A class kind of, so to speak, again. Can you see that happening? And, if so, what are the possible drawbacks? I know parts has been mentioned as a possible drawback. I think that would actually help in getting... There's already big crowds there, but it might get a few more back again. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I think it's happening already, really. I mean, Alan Ring and Ray Breen turned out two fabulous Subaru Legacies, and Johnny Greer turned out a fabulous Sierra Cosworth 4x4, and they're K-spec, FIA spec historic rally cars. And I suppose it's only a matter of time before the first of the world cars fall into the same category. Is it right or wrong? I don't know. I'm going to say it is right. I think the sound of Alan's car up through the gap and the Legacy popping and banging. We spoke earlier about the M3s taking us back to the early 90s. And that certainly took us back to the late 90s. And sure, everything moves on. And I think to be a welcome addition. It just might be just changed the way a historic rally is run. But look, they're FIA K-spec cars, and like as I say, the three drivers that brought the former Group A cars this weekend, they turned out three beautiful cars, and they're three very capable drivers. And it brings you back to the mid-90s. So what's next? The mid-2000s.
Yeah, and that must be nostalgic for you lads as well, because for me on a personal level, growing up looking at all those cars and stuff, that's what got me kind of into rallying and stuff. So I don't know how it sits with you.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's the Group A cars there, the Alan's car there. It's kind of something that we watched. That's what we were watching when we were getting into rallying and growing up with it. And Jesus, to be nothing better than trying to get into one of them and fling it around the Killarney roads and up Mal's Gap. I think, yeah, you're definitely right. It brings a different spectacle to the whole historic rallying. I suppose in the last 10 years, it was a lot of Mark 1s, Mark 2s, and maybe there were too many of them. And over the last couple of years, we've seen the likes of the Subarus, the M3s, the Sierras, all them coming back. And I think that it definitely brings a total different spectacle to the whole thing.
Jorah, you were going to say something there, sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, they're such iconic cars that when I was young, starting watching rallying, these are the cars I was watching. They were the top cars, and it's unbelievable to see them back again. Not to mind in the original liveries and stuff, and they're all built to the right specification, etc. And it's class to see them back.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we'd like to know what's happening next, because Rob, we've obviously had a little chat recently, or not so recently, I suppose, a few months ago now at this stage. But in terms of, a lot of people love nothing more than Rob Duggan in a Moriarty. Obviously, you went and built that now, and it's a fabulous piece of machinery. But a lot of lads like the look of Rob Duggan in an R5 as well, and four-wheel drive machinery. So, is there any plans in place for next year, or are we looking beyond that at the moment?
No, look, the plan the last 3 years was try and get this escort finished and get it out, and there's still a lot of work to be done to that. It's yes, it was good the weekend, but there's a lot of tweaking to be done with it yet. So we're just going to play around with that. Hopefully, we'll definitely be in Killarney in May if it's running. Hopefully, and we're just going to try and fill in a couple of rallies around it. Maybe West Cork, because one of the big aims, I suppose, is to go to Donegal. I've been there in the R5. I'd love to go there in the escort, just to see what it's like. I think it'd be a big task, but there's also a big budget to go there. So I suppose we'd have to limit a few rallies coming up to that, just to make sure we can go to Donegal and do it right. So look, I'll just take it as it comes, get the car right first, and keep on top of things before we get to Donegal, and make sure the car is right and we're right going up there, and see where it goes from there. like to do a couple of odd rallies. The Belgium rally is definitely something that interests me to crack this. The other lads head over there this year, and it just looked like an all-round good fun weekend and a bit of a holiday mixed in with the whole lot. I think it's something that a lot of Irish crews will probably think of next year, and maybe we might join them as well. But nah, pick and choose, not really too pushed on getting into any championships or anything. I've done the championships, I've been there, and yeah, we're just out for the fun now. That's what the escort is for. Go hard when we're inside the seat and have a bit of fun when we're out of it, and like the slagging at the start of the gap, give each other abuse and go hard and try and win, and that's kind of the main aim these days.
That's the job. Well, listen, lads, it's a pleasure to have you on the Irish Rally podcast. We'll be following your progress very closely, no doubt. Best luck with next year and all. Congratulations on the win. Obviously, we said it's a special one. And look, delighted to have you on, and we'll chat to you soon, all right?
Perfect, thanks.
There we go. So
Thanks
we say goodbye
Donald.
to Jorah, and we say goodbye to Rob. And Nicole Drought is on standby. We'll bring her in just a moment's time. Sean, you know, we mentioned kind of nostalgic things, and I just want to play this clip first, and we'll have a quick word on it.
Hey, the amount of comments online, give me 1 second. Just admiring the car, Rory's own car, listen, well done.
Absolutely unbelievable. There's far too many people to thank for getting us here this weekend. Like on Tuesday night, there was 9 men working around this car. It was like out tonic coming out of the lake. There was more bodies around it, and too many people to thank. And amazing. Thanks. A great tribute to Rory this weekend.
I'm glad you got to the end, because this is so much more than just finishing a rally. This is a magic moment, like.
Yeah, really is.
Well done.
Thank you.
Come on, okay. Really nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks to Andy Walsh for giving us access to that clip. So that's obviously quite special. I do have the photograph of that shell somewhere as well, Sean, but it has to be seen to be believed. We'll actually fire it up there later, because I just haven't time to go digging it out here at the moment with the multitasking aspect of it. But
yeah, very special car. And credit to the guys that they went to the trouble of finding that car and rebuilding that car. They would have raced directly against Rory Galligan in the Mitsubishi Challenge days, of course, and just a nice tribute to their old friend Rory. He started rallying at 19 years of age, and that was the car that he first started. He started out on. I don't actually know the event he started out on. He's only 19, but 1993, I believe, was the first outing in that car. But just kind of into the kind of later and the mid to late 90s that he really started making a name for himself in the Peugeot 205. He had some serious giant killing performances in the late 90s in that car. And then he went on to the UK to the Peugeot 106 and 206 Cup, and further up the ranks, and competed twice at World Championship level as well. He competed in Rally Finland in a front-wheel drive Astra, and he competed in Rally Finland in a Mitsubishi Evo 9, I believe, with Greg Shinners alongside him. But these are like Rory was a talented driver. He was a gentleman. He was I don't know. It was just a sad loss. He suffered motor neuron disease, and unfortunately, they took him out of it in 2006. Sadly missed. A fantastic driver, a fantastic person, and sorry, he retired from rallying in 2006. That's what I meant. But he passed away some years later after succumbing to the illness. But hugely missed. Yeah, hugely missed. And probably we're talking about Craig and Paul trying to fly the flag and being the top level Irish driver at World Championship level now. I think Rory's probably deprived of the chance of going to that level 20 odd years ago, because he certainly had the talent.
Absolutely. Well, look, a very nostalgic moment, in fairness. And again, thanks to Andy for giving us access to that. Nicole Drought, how's things?
Hi guys, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on. Listen, thanks for coming on at such a short notice. You answered the call of duty. An enjoyable weekend for you?
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I didn't know what to expect kind of going into it, even though I had been around the rally scene with my dad. I suppose it had been some years since we were kind of in that loop. So yeah, even going into the recce the week before, it was a bit of a shock to the system to what I'm used to. But I enjoyed every second of it, and like every single person, being a navigator, driver, mechanic, whatever. They were so helpful, and yeah, it made the weekend a bit easier for us.
And the class win also.
Yeah, well, yeah, our goal was to get to the finish, to be perfectly honest, and keep the car in one piece. So that was first on the agenda, and thankfully, yeah, everything went smoothly.
Good stuff. Well, look, it wasn't without drama, of course, because I think on your first run you had intercom failure. Is that right?
We did, yeah. We were literally at the start line, and we said we'd plug them in again just to make sure everything is okay. And yeah, we had no intercom, so that was really tough. I was watching hand signals for 3 stages, and it just felt like I was driving completely blind. I couldn't remember anything from the recce, so that was really tough. But we made up from having the intercom for the second loop. We made up a savage amount of time, so I was kind of raging there wasn't a third loop to go away that step further again. But yeah, it was a great experience.
Yeah. So like with the hand signals and all, that's something I remember. Enda Nolan and Michael Lester years ago having to do something kind of similar or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you're obviously in your game. There is no hand signals. There's no one there beside you. Kind of. I don't know. Is that a help or a hindrance on rally day? But I sure as hell would rather have pace notes anyway after we're going.
Yeah, definitely the pace notes have been handier. I mean, I know in circuit racing we don't have a co-driver, but we'd usually have a go of a simulator or watch some on board and have a fair idea of what corner is coming up. So that was tough, just having to trust hand signals and trying to get through as safe as possible at the same time. It made the weekend so much more difficult than it needs to be. I knew it was going to be tough. But yeah, that second loop, as I say, was just unbelievable. It was just such a good feeling, and everything came into place.
Yeah, you were probably that bit more relaxed as well, were you? Or were you actually nervous at all beforehand? Even though I know you had the intercom problems, but how were you actually feeling beforehand in comparison to maybe a race or whatever?
I suppose I knew it was going to be tough, and I was kind of a bit, kind of had the butterflies, I suppose, but that's probably not a bad thing. I do a lot of work to keep the nerves at bay anyway with a performance coach. But when the intercom thing came, I just thought, oh God, this is going to be even worse than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, once I kind of got through the first stage, all I just kept thinking was I need to get to service and everything will be fine. And as soon as we got to the start line of Miles Gap again for the second run, I felt quite good, and yeah, we just got into a rhythm and everything just felt like it was supposed to be. So it wasn't too bad, but could have done without the intercom issues, to be honest.
And you ended up catching a few cars over the course of the day?
Yeah, I think we caught 3. Got 2 on the first stage and 1 in the second. So I suppose driving blind wasn't the worst in the end, but we still, as I said, we made up a huge amount of time in the second loop. So it would have been interesting to see how much more time we could have made up if we didn't have those issues.
Yeah, and Sean, you will know the difficulty of that, right? Because although Nicole would know from racing that wing mirrors are there rather, and they are used, rally drivers don't really use them, do they? In fairness, and sometimes they don't know when to pull over. Like,
well, you kind of know who's around you, and you're going to be fair. And sometimes you try and rejig your positions at the start of the stage. If you know there's a quicker driver behind you, you're going to swap around. But there's not always the time to do it. I mean, there's only, you're putting 2 cars per minute into a stage, and you're not going to have the way they ran that rally. Like, it was as slick as you could. So there wasn't much time for that swapping around. But it's an exciting moment of either being caught or catching, and catching is probably a little bit more dangerous because you're going to push yourself a little bit harder to reel in the driver in front. But it's but I'm sure Nicole will tell us better there about the as I mentioned myself earlier. But to be nice to hear from someone up the country that came down and saw those stages in the winter time for the first time, the scenery, the atmosphere, the challenge of the roads. That's what rallying Killarney is all about. And I'm just curious to know what Nicole just thought of, not just Malone Miles Gap, but Lochbema and Cara Lake as well, and the scenery and the crack around Killarney as well, just from for want of a better word, an outsider's point of view rather than a Kerry man's point of view.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that was one thing I said, was there wasn't much time throughout the day. It was all a go. Even in service, I think we had about 30 minutes, and it was out the gap. And as soon as we got to the first stage again, Miles Gap, it was time to put the helmet on and get cracking. So there was no waiting around. It was a very, very well run event. Probably went too fast, so would have loved a third loop. But yeah, even just thinking of recce there, that we did recce on the Sunday, and it was just the most sunny day, and I just thought this is just going to be amazing. The views are amazing. Just reminded me of playing PlayStation all those years ago, and doing the Colin McRae games and stuff like that, and seeing the stages around the world and thinking that, geez, this is so cool. So the stages for that rally were just spectacular. I think I might be disappointed if I go do another rally, because it won't be as cool. But they were just, I have to say, unbelievable and a very well run event. And what the other thing that was amazing as well was the amount of spectators that were out. I got loads of messages and stuff, and it was really nice to have that support, because I knew it was going to be really difficult coming from circuit racing. So to have that support there as well, it was overall just a really nice event.
And some lovely photographs as well. The thing I'd like to ask is, obviously, you grew up around rallying or whatever. So why circuit racing first, and how has it taken this long for you to maybe sample rallying?
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I didn't know anything about circuit racing, and I thought, that was definitely not a route I was going to go down, because I was such a rally head. But my dad took a break from rallying for a couple of years and made the switch down to circuit racing in about 2000 and maybe 13, 14. So I suppose I followed him for 2 years doing that, and that's where an opportunity a car came for sale, actually in my local town. And so it kind of just fell into place from there. And I really enjoyed watching him do it, and I suppose that's why I made a step into circuit racing. But yeah, it had always been a goal of mine, and especially a childhood dream, to compete in a rally. So I think 12-year-old me would have been crying if she knew that she was going to be doing Killarney Historics for her first rally.
So obviously there's a few more on the agenda, you'd hope, I suppose, if you can get an old deal together.
Yeah, I'd love to. I only got to drive the Mini the night before in around little car park, so it wasn't the best of starts to get to know the car. But I feel quite confident with it now, and I think, I'd love to jump in for the next round if possible. But we'll see what way it pans out. But if the opportunity arises 100%, I'll jump at it and get back in a rally car.
Good stuff. And what's next on the agenda in general?
So I'm hoping next year to compete again in brick car. I was driving a TCR Hyundai i30N this year, and I really clicked with the car this year, and I'm quite confident with it. So if I could attack the championship next year with that car, I think I could do quite well. So fingers crossed. Now this is the time, I suppose, where rally and race drivers are trying to get their budget together. So hopefully we can get it together and make an attack at the championship.
Good stuff. Sean, any questions before we let Nicole go?
I do think it's great to have someone like Nicole in Killarney for the weekend, and especially someone coming from a racing background rather than a rally background. And yeah, she mentioned there her helmet gave trouble at the start of the first stage, I think, or the intercom system in the rally car. But just heard it back in the hotel in the bars later that night, because there was two friends of mine involved in the repair of that. The Mick Smith, the chairman of London Irish Motor Club, a proud Killarney man that came home from London especially to do the rally, and his navigator, who's also a London Irish member, Brian Commons, a Limerick man that gave many years living the other side of the pond. So it's great to see the London Irish Killarney connection helping the new person involved in rallying to try and get the whole situation solved. Two experienced men and two wise men. But I'd like to know what as I say, it's been a fantastic weekend of atmosphere. The ceremonial start, I'm sure, Nicole, on Friday evening was a new experience for you as well. I'm just wondering how you reacted to driving a rally car through essentially a Christmas parade.
Yeah, that really kicked it off for me, and to see, because a couple of the guys I was talking to in scrutiny, and they were just saying that they thought that maybe there mightn't be as big a crowd this year with COVID and stuff. So it was really, really nice to see a huge crowd, and everyone just mad to see the rally cars, and I suppose after a long break with COVID and stuff, people were relieved to see everyone back in action. But yeah, it was really nice, and to go over the ramp for the first time, and that really just kicked it off, and it was a really good buzz. But yeah, it was mega, just a really great feeling, really, really nice.
Good stuff. Listen, Nicole Drought, thanks a million for coming on the Irish Rally podcast. And again, at late notice as well. Well done on the weekend. And we'll be following your progress closely. And we'll chat to you again soon, all right?
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks a million. There we go. So, Sean, it's back to myself and yourself. So, we have a couple of bits and bobs to go through. I'd like to go through the class winners, first of all, obviously from the Rent to Kill initial Killarney Historic Rally. Obviously, Craig taking the overall win with Paul. Alan Ring then and Adrian DC in that class. This is Class K. Donna Kelly and Rory Kennedy. And then you have Eamon Kelly. Now, Eamon Kelly is someone I wanted to mention because he was spectacular, in fairness. Like, that would have been his first time in machine like that.
Donna and Eamon are father and son, like, and they finished 5th and 6th overall, or 4th and 5th overall, sorry. But that's a great achievement for Eamon, and Donna has won a lot of rallies down the Killarney direction, but father and son, 4th and 5th overall. That was a nice little yarn there, in fairness.
Yeah, not too shabby at all. Going down to the classes, B2 that went to Colin McDowell and Michael Spence. B3, Tom Slattery, Helen Slattery. Then you have John Keatley. Now, John Keatley is another lad we need to mention. He won Class B5, so that's a connection back to the first event, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, he won the first ever Killarney Historic Rally as founded by the late great Maurice Nagle in 1996, and he's been back in Killarney a few times since then. He's done the Lakes, and he's done the Historic Rally over the years. But that was the car that he actually won the original event in 25 years ago. The only difference is that the car is now painted red, and it was previously painted white when he won 25 years ago. So the organising club gave him the special number of 25 in the doors, and it was a special occasion for John as well, like to be back around 25 years on. He's good crack, he's good company, he's a good person, he's a good rally man, and who'd have thought that when he won the first event that he'd be back 25 years on, and that's just a nice little side story to the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And the 25 in the door kind of added to the photographs that were taken over the years or over the weekend.
Definitely, yeah. Class C1, Brian Carson. Class C2, Ed Colton. C3, Pat Looney.
Another role, he's been around a long time. Back always, I think, except maybe more recent years, but always associated with kind of Chrysler Peugeot type, French cars, and like the Chrysler became Talbot, and Talbot became Peugeot, and there's all this. If you know the history of the motor manufacturers, but Ed was always associated with that brand of car. I first came across him a long time ago. He used to be doing the Valley Beach Rally down in Kerry in a Group A Peugeot 205, and he was back again in an Avenger. So he's keeping the link with the French models.
Mm-hmm. All right, so moving on to C3, we said Pat Looney and Amy Burke. C5,
Mike Simpson. Burke's debut, first ever rally for Amy. She comes from an equestrian background, but she jumped into the breach there with Pat, so fair play to her.
Yep, nothing wrong with that. C5, I want to give special mention to Mr. John O'Reilly. He's, obviously managing director of TreeRock.ie, our sponsors here this evening. So, in fairness to him, Mike Simpson won that class with Dale Gibbons. Class D1, obviously, the aforementioned Nicole Drought with Aaron McElroy. D2, that went to Brian Crawford and Finian Hannigan. Now, another Brian Crawford is a very good friend of ours on the Irish Rally podcast. He was supposed to go with Davy Greer, and that didn't materialise, I don't think. Right in saying that?
Well, there's a story with myself and Finian Hannigan, actually, which goes back about 15 or 16 years ago.
Right. Give us that.
And I was, I suppose, odds on to win the Irish Forestry Championship alongside Patrick Elliott in the Mitsubishi Evo 6, but a previous back injury from the year before absolutely manifested itself through the summer, and I wasn't able to do the last round. And the last round was in Killarney. I ended up doing a time control in the Killarney Forestry Rally with my back in very bad condition, and couldn't. Doctor's orders, you're not allowed to do the rally, and by default in there, because one of the other drivers that was on for a podium was he had several different navigators through the year. So by the time everything sorted itself out, Finian Hannigan actually became the overall co-driving champion for the Forestry Championship that year. And I hadn't met him since that fateful day in Castle Island until Sunday evening outside the Glen, or Saturday evening outside the Gleneagle. So we had a good old laugh about that one anyway. And, he fair played him. He finished and started every round, and I had to miss one. So, no, it was nice to beat him after a long time. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say that. They keep throwing up stories. D3 that went to Noel Dine and James Morta, D5. Obviously, Cap McCord and Liam Minehan, third overall, I think, as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Best escort in the historic rally. Liam, of course, is a member of Killarney District Motor Club. So at least one occupant of each of the top 3 cars were a member of the local club. So Paul Nagle, first overall, KDMC member. Alan Ring, KDMC member, driving second overall. And Liam Minehan, third overall, KDMC member. So that was it. The local club locked out the podium, if you like.
That's the way I want it. There's a rattle of classes in this, in fairness now. Yeah, the whole thing is class, says you. But E1 that went to William Avity there in that fabulous Samba. Yeah. Obviously, the Rory Galligan connection we've touched on. E2, that's Irla Carty. Class 1 then, Kevin Flanagan, Mark Riley. Class 2, Mr. PJ O'Dowd, Denny Graney. The boys with
local man there. PJ is the chairman of my local club, the Kerry Motor Club in Tralee, and he had a bad run in Banner there recently, had gasket failure. They were up, the parts only arrived Wednesday, and they were up all night Wednesday and all night Thursday getting the engine into that car. And two firemen in the car. PJ's a fireman in Tralee, and Denny Graney's a fireman in Castellan. So yeah, they were on fire up the gap on Saturday morning.
They were indeed. They were very popular. PJ was very popular on the podcast with Mike Cleary there a few weeks ago as well. Class 3, James Cassidy and Donald Lennon. Class 4, Light Hutchinson and Willie Fitzpatrick. Class 5, Eddie Doherty, Tom Murphy. Class 6, Aidan Buckley, Shane Buckley.
Class 7 as well, to be fair, now the Buckleys.
Yeah, give them the
two cousins. And we talk about the London Irish Motor Club, but Shane is heavily involved in London Irish Motor Club. He came home especially for the weekend, and Aidan is they built that car. Maybe I think that was actually their 10th rally not Shane is a very experienced co-driver, but it was Aidan's 10th rally as a driver, and to be challenging for class 13 or a different number in this particular rally, but it's essentially class 13 in national rallies with just 10 rallies under their belt. That was probably one of the drives of the rally as well, in fairness.
Mm-hmm. And class 7, last but not least, Rob Duggan, Jorah Conway.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding. And I suppose mentioned their great friend and rival on today was Colin O'Donoghue and Kieran O'Donoghue. There was a race on there. There were swapping times, and maybe Rob had the upper hand, but there was a close race between two very good friends and two very good mates. But Colin had a clutch issue, and he cleared Moll's gap the second time, but didn't start Bullock Bama. So that was unfortunate. Colin had a great run in Belgium earlier on this year. He won the Escort Rally Special out there, so he probably preferred a bit more local territory. But winning in Belgium is an achievement too, and that's hugely that's a huge achievement. Yeah.
And we wanted to highlight 4 members of Killarney District Motor Club have given, is it 40 years service?
Well, I put my hand up, and before the rally, I put out a story. Then I said, I kind of covered myself ever so slightly, and I said at least 2 members of Killarney District Motor Club are going to celebrate 40 years of motorsport this year. Now, Tommy Randalls, who was driving the famous Dyno Ford Escort, Tommy did his first rally, which was the 1981 Circuit of Munster, and Dennis Cronin, who's from Bantry, Ballyleaky in West Cork, he's a member of the club as well. He did his first rally, the Lakes, in 1981. So they're 40 years involved in the sport. But then it turns out that Brendan Brosnan, who was driving the 00 car for the modified rally, he did his first rally in the Circuit of Munster in 1981. And then Todd Falvey, who was driving a Ford Escort this weekend, competed in the 1981 Rally the Lakes as a co-driver to his cousin Barry Duggan. So that's 4 members of the local club, Killarney District Motor Club, that have been competing in rallies for 40 years. Now, I apologize if there's probably 1 or 2 more going to come out of the woodwork after that statement, but a huge achievement for them, and hugely popular members of the club, and good drivers, good guys to have around the rally event.
Absolutely. Well, listen, just the one thing before I get your thoughts on the RAC and the success of Irish drivers, in that it's something we've already touched on. It's an awful pity it was on the same weekend. We spoke about with Noel there last weekend, Noel O'Sullivan. And obviously they had plenty of drama as well. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out. It was a mad stage there yesterday. Paul Barrett and Gordon Noel went off as well, but a lot of people wouldn't have minded a rattle off either of those events. So maybe that'll be looked at in terms of trying to avoid that situation. It's a pity because they are 2 great events, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah. There needs to be better thought. Even straight away there, you're talking about the 2 biggest historic events, the biggest Irish event and the biggest British event on the same weekend. That's it's a bit silly, but let's call a spade a spade. Even if one or the other was on last week or next week, or there was only 2 weeks behind them, anyone that has taken on the 5 days of the RAC isn't coming to Killarney, or anyone that's coming to Killarney isn't, they're not risking the car for 5 days later, if you understand me. So while it is a pity that there's some degree of clashing with it, maybe a month apart might be more realistic, but I think you'll never get the RAC in mid-October, because they're trying to replicate the old RAC rallies of the 80s and 90s with the snow, and well, they get what, sometimes be careful what you wish for. But I don't know, it is an unfortunate class, but there's plus and minuses. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, look, obviously we mentioned the misfortune of the lads there, but we had some nice little stories there as well. So Gary McElhenney obviously alongside Seb Perez, second overall, and then Adrian Henderson and Rory O'Neill in third. Now, I saw a comment by Frank Kelly, I think, under, I don't know what post it was, maybe he had it on his own page, something along the lines of, he's as likely to finish the rally as I am. And then you have a 5-day rally and he goes third overall. And he's been spoken about a little bit on this podcast previously. Seems to be getting quicker with age.
Yeah, well, fair play. And that's like if Frank Kelly's having a rub off you, you must be doing right, or something right, or something wrong with Kelly's well able to give the bad manners, So but it was a fantastic achievement for Adrian and Ronan as well, like third overall. Shout out to Gary as well. Gary's having a great year in co-driving for young Perez there now, and they've done a few rounds of the World Rally Championship this year. Good guy, Gary. He's proper rally man, a real rally man, so best of luck to him. Hard luck to our own man Noel O'Sullivan, who came ever so close to winning the British Rally Championship and went horribly wrong in the penultimate stage. And I suppose the story kind of replicates itself again on Monday. We were just coming round from the Killarney Historic Rally weekend, and trying to, or just about waking up on Monday morning after a hectic weekend down here when the news broke that they were out, and of course Gordon Noble and Barrett were out as well. They were both retired in the same stage. Shocking hard look after a 4.5-day adventure to what was left, 3-4 stages, not even 4 stages left, and they didn't make it. Yeah, so real hard look to both crews, to be fair.
Mm-hmm. So Sean, I think that's just about it. Anything else to add before we say goodbye?
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure and good crack talking to all the lads, and I didn't get a proper catch up with them all the weekend, and so just good to see everybody on tonight. One thing on behalf of Killarney District Motor Club is just as people, I suppose the best thing to do is check my page for this now, because I don't have the actual Killarney District Motor Club details right in front of me. But there is a few programs left over, and if there's anybody wishing to buy a few official programs for the 25th anniversary event for Christmas present for someone, just have a look at my page, kerrymotorsportnews.com, and there's an email address there for the club PRO, and he'll make arrangements to post one out to you for. I think it's kind of a story of when they're gone, like, so be dropping them a line as quick as possible.
Okay, well, listen, Sean, thanks very much for giving up your time once again and coming on the Irish Rally podcast. I've enjoyed the last hour or so immensely as well. We'll chat again soon, no doubt. You'll probably have to get an interrailing ticket now for next year to follow Nagle around the place, will you?
I would be expecting the private helicopter to be dropped outside my house, Mr. Nagle. Interrail will not be happening. And you can pass that on.
Listen, come here. We'll chat to you again soon. Thanks for coming on, all right?
Good man, Kevin. Thank you very much.
There we go, Mr. Sean Moriarty of Kerry Motorsport News. The comments have been absolutely flooding in. Lots of well wishes to all our guests who came on, and we want to thank obviously Sean and Nicole Drought, Rob Duggan, Jorah Conway, and obviously Paul Nagle as well. We also want to thank our sponsors for tonight. That's Tree Rock. You can visit treerock.ie or follow them across their social media platforms. And you can follow us, obviously, on Twitter, Facebook, where we're live in addition to YouTube. We're also on Instagram at Irish Rally Pod. Turn on the notifications there. You'll know when we're gone live. And generally within an hour or so after the program, we get the audio across onto Spotify and Apple and Google. And you can even ask Alexa and OK Google to start playing the podcast if you want it. You can email us either at irishrallypodcast@gmail.com. That's where we leave it. Well done to everyone involved in a fantastic event at the weekend, and we'll chat to you again soon. Until then,